Even many people who call themselves creationists believe in millions of years.
But is the evidence for deep time really that rock solid? Today on Creation Magazine Live.
Welcome to Creation Magazine Live. My name's Richard Fangrad.
And I'm Calvin Smith.
Now, for many people, the age of the Earth the age of the universe is a settled issue.
Right.
The age of the Earth, this number 4.6 billion years, is thrown around as if it's a fact. And students have gained this understanding. They've been taught, perhaps, that a couple hundred years ago, scientists started discovering all of this evidence that the Earth is in fact 4.5 billion years old, and that everything that came before it is just it's pre-science.
Yeah,
type
there's
of thing.
mounds of evidence, etc.
That's the idea.
Of course, most students aren't taught the history and the presuppositions behind this assumption, so they just accept it. Even many creationists believe that the Earth is millions of years old,
Right.
and that they actually argue against biological evolution, while holding to the concept of geological evolution, or millions of years,
Right.
because of the evidence, supposedly. But of course, the presuppositions behind the evidence for millions of years are the same presuppositions behind the concept of biological evolution.
Yes,
So.
same types of things. Now, according to Wikipedia, this is Wikipedia, the primary evidence for the age of the Earth comes from radioisotope dating.
Right.
That's the number one evidence. And we've dealt with this many different times. You can see the links to the shows we've done on the screen. We've done a couple of shows there, and there's others, of course, on creation.com as well.
Yeah.
So we need to mention that Wikipedia is not like the Encyclopedia Britannica or something. Okay, this is a user-edited encyclopedia,
Right.
but nevertheless, it's probably one of the first places that people go to nowadays to get information on things.
Right.
So
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah, interesting to see on their article that the first thing they mention is this article is about the scientific age for the Earth, and for religious beliefs, see dating creation, right? The typical evolution is science and creation is religious type
Yes,
nonsense
yes.
that we've dealt with so often on the show. But of course, if you look up a definition of religion on dictionary.com, for example, you'll see a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe, especially when considered as the creation of a superhuman agency or agencies. If you take away the creator part, which is what secularists want to do, it basically says a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe. So guess what? Everybody has a religious beliefs, because even atheists believe they know what the cause and et cetera of the universe
Sure, yeah,
is.
everybody's equally religious.
Yeah.
Now, although the Wikipedia article touts radioisotope dating as really their big guns as far as the evidence for millions of years, billions of years is concerned, the fact is that 200 years ago, when scientists started looking at, pondering the age of the Earth and serious, radioisotope dating didn't exist.
Right.
It wasn't around 200 years ago. The argument back then that was used was very, very different, of course. And there were two major views used to argue then, with subsets of belief within those two views.
Right. There were the gradualists, like Charles Lyell, for example. These men were arguing for gradual processes to account for what they saw in geology.
Right.
And then the flip side were catastrophists, like George Cuvier and William Buckland. And these were more likely to believe in sudden events or catastrophes to explain much of what they saw in the rocks. And note, by the way, that not all catastrophists believed in a young Earth. Many were catastrophists that believed in old Earth, but saw catastrophes as a way to explain things.
Right. Now note something here. Both were looking at exactly the same data.
Right.
They're looking at the rocks and so on. Here we see again the difference between operational and historical science, that it seems like we do this to death, but people still don't get it. There's
That's right.
differences in this area.
Yep.
No one can go back in time and see these geological features form.
Right.
So we're talking about things that are not observed. and then you interpret those facts based on what history you believe to be true.
That's right. So they're both looking at the same facts. They're both coming to completely different conclusions.
Right.
And oftentimes they still both believe in millions of years that they're coming to different conclusions, et cetera. So back then there were three main evidences used to, that the gradualists, old Earth advocates, used to bolster their beliefs in an old Earth, millions of years processes.
Okay.
They were the time needed to erode valleys, 2, volcanism, volcanoes, and 3, the time needed to form sedimentary rocks. We've already shown the serious problems with radiometric dating and things like that. What we want to do on this show is go back to the beginning of this concept of millions of years, the popular notion of millions of years, and see how those arguments that they used back then stack up based on what we know today about science.